This episode is brought to you by Lucasfilm, presenting Andor Season 2. Andor has earned 14 Emmy nominations, including Writing, Directing, and Outstanding Drama Series. Vanity Fair raves that Andor is profoundly resonant. It's the best television of the year. All episodes of Andor are now streaming on Disney+. Hi, everyone. Today, you're going to hear two conversations that I am pretty excited to share with you. First up is the third installment of our fall preview series, this time focusing on the major studios and the Oscar race. David Sims, a returning guest, is here to talk to me about whether Universal can continue their recent winning streak after Best Picture wins for Oppenheimer and Green Book before that, and with Wicked Part 2 on deck. We're going to talk about if Paramount and 20th Century are really in the mix with the titles they have. And then definitely, most importantly, if Warner Brothers can take Sinners from box office and cultural phenomenon to Best Picture winner. After that, you'll hear my conversation with Michelle Williams. She's an Emmy nominee this year for her role on the truly spectacular FX limited series Dying for Sex. As a reminder, if you're a Prestige Junkie After Party member, you get access to the full video version of this podcast, as well as all kinds of other bonus content for just $5 a month. We would love to see you there. I am Katey Rich, and this is the Prestige Junkie Podcast. David Sims, thank you for being here. I don't know, we talk about Oscars all the time.
We do.
But we don't usually limit ourselves to just what the major studios are doing. So I feel like I'm going to learn a lot about you after all these years. It's very exciting.
Oh, I'm sure yes. I'm sure there's so much more about me for you to learn.
Revelatory conversation.
Yes.
So we're going to, we have our list of all of the titles that these studios have. I think there's one very obvious one to get to that's an actual contender, and then some others.
Right.
But just to kind of start us more broadly, like, as I said, the intro, studios don't really win Oscars anymore. Universal's the only one to have done it in the last 10 years with both Green Book and Oppenheimer. What a double feature. What do you think the deal is? Like, are they not trying? Are they trying and failing? What's your read on it?
So the stat you said is right? Like, it's Universal has those 2 wins.
Yeah.
How many nominations do they even have? I'm sort of looking, because I do
what
feel
a great
like,
question.
Like last year,
there's always
we had
a couple. Like, there's
a couple.
There's probably never a year where they're totally shut out, at least since
last
the 10.
year we had Dune and Wicked. It's like there's these sort of spots for the bigger movies that are such successes that they, can't be ignored, right? Yeah. Obviously, the simple fact is that all these big studios have their, indie shingles, your Searchlight, your Focus. Yes. Not all, but a fair amount of them.
Yeah. Fewer of them than there used to be.
Yes. Sony Classics still exists.
Yep.
So a lot of that sort of awardsy work is farmed out to the shingle. The studios don't care as much, I guess, about winning the Oscar game because it's not like part of the box office strategy for almost anything that they're making.
Yeah, not anymore. That it
Right.
was at one point, which, we talk about plenty of, like, when you go win Best Picture in 1988 and then your movie plays in theaters for 4 more months after that. Like, it's been a long time since that was the case.
And instead now it's this kind of found money thing with something like Dune Part 2 or Wicked, where it's like, oh, hey, it actually was well reviewed enough and popular enough that even the Oscars are throwing us a bone.
Yeah.
But when Universal got those wins, it's sort of a credit to the studio. That's a studio that, sort of advertises itself within the industry as like putting filmmakers first a little bit more and
Sure.
Maybe having a little bit more of a robust operation on that front. But like, I don't feel like these studios have the most sharp-elbowed awards operations either.
At least not internally. Like, they'll work with outside studios a lot of the time.
Right.
And, the people who worked on Oppenheimer worked their ass off to make that Best Picture campaign happen, even though it felt like a fait accompli months and months in advance. Same thing for Wicked. Like, God knows those people earned their keep.
Well, and to advertise my own credibility here, to puff it up, it's like I told you Oppenheimer was winning Best Picture.
You did. You had
the start of
early.
2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in my last appearance on this podcast, I told you that Anora was definitely like just too spiky and weird to win Best Picture.
It's true.
It was like 1 week before it won every single precursor.
I know. You really were
and it
right
wasn't
before
that
the
weird
surge.
kind of like, so what is winning?
Yeah.
Like,
what do we think was going to win? I guess Conclave was what we all landed on?
It was like Emilia Perez had just hit a wall.
Right.
And we were like, and The Brutalist was like very, very, like at the peak of its hype.
Yep.
And we were like, I guess The Brutalist is sort of more epic than Anora, and maybe it'll it was, but what we were all grasping a little bit.
What a weird time that was.
Well, it's a weird Oscar year, but I do think you got to think about it in terms of what we're about to talk about.
Okay.
Because, last year they happily went for the supposedly more international and arty voting body of the Academy, right? That is much discussed over the last decade. Went for Anora, went for the, artier film over Conclave or
A Complete Unknown, I guess,
Complete
is
Unknown
like sort
or
of a
whatever,
studio movie.
right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that this year does that mean that we should just sort of take the baseline of their taste as, they're going to want something a little artier. They're going to be more friendly to something that's a little smaller. Or should we be like, so after last year, they might swing populist again because, you're often reacting to what just happened.
Sure.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
What does the Oscar swinging populist mean at this point, I guess, though? Like,
Sinners.
Well, okay, so, all right, hang on. Yeah, Sinners, we'll get to that in 2 seconds. But, like, thinking about Oppenheimer or even Sinners, really, like, those are populist, very popular movies that are very auteur-driven, very, message-focused, have something in there.
Yes.
Like, they're doing that on a grand scale, which, like, 2 or 3 people manage to do a year at best. So, like, that is the populist version of the Oscars these days. But it's not like, I was going to say The English Patient. That's about it. It's not like Titanic, Like, there's a different version of populism that exists now.
Titanic is always a bad Oscar example because nothing like that ever happens, right?
Yeah.
And Oppenheimer is kind of close to Titanic.
In terms of, like, it's a director-driven, like,
but
ambition.
it's also just become such a box office phenomenon. Obviously, nothing is like a box office phenomenon like Titanic was, but right, where it's just like, no one is going to ignore this. Everyone throws their hands up.
Yeah.
Like, let's not even pretend that there's a competitor here. Or it just sort of happened. Lord of the Rings winning was kind of like that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when that's the other blockbuster that's won this century, basically.
Many listeners, maybe you too young to remember or whatever, but, like, we spent a lot of that year, especially when Lord of the Rings, it won the New York Film Critics Circle. I'll never forget it. Best Picture Award. Which was so shocking because it was just
when this happened. Just to be clear, like, you were not in this business yet.
I was in high school. I was a 17-year-old. But I remember when it won the Critics Circle, it felt like this kind of, because I was obviously at the beginning of the award season, this real marker of like, okay, everyone's kind of gonna just hand it over because it's the end of the trilogy. Even the Critics Awards are going to it. And we spent that whole award season being like, Seabiscuit? Like there were these like moments of like, do they care about, but it was so obvious that, everyone was just ready to doff their cap.
Yeah.
Well, and last year was the opposite of that, where it was like, who on earth is like getting the cap? Who will be the doffee?
Well, and
for pretty much the whole year.
You have, now that you are in New York Film Critics Circle, like, you guys vote for, I think Oppenheimer won Best Director, but Killers of the Flower Moon wins Best Picture. Like, there's not the same, like, I think critics groups are less inclined to kind of start a sweep in that way because you can be like, all right, what's a critic's favorite? How do we get on board with this?
Speaking as the former chair of the New York Film Critics Circle, I will say we changed our voting process so that we vote on Best Picture first and Best Director last. That happened when I joined several years ago.
I didn't realize it was that recent.
It was like 2017 or 2018 that they made that switch. And, they made the switch to avoid, I think, I guess the main reason is just so everyone knows what's won Best Picture. So, like, because that's just, it's kind of the most important thing for everyone to know. And then, like, you might adjust your voting a little bit if you already know, that Killers of the Flower Moon won Best Picture or whatever, especially since that award's going to go to the filmmaker anyway.
Yeah.
So like I always say at our awards, I do informally feel like Best Picture goes to the favorite, director goes to the second favorite, and screenplay goes to the third favorite.
Sure.
It does often kind of break out that way. Yes, because like Anora won screenplay that year, and Anora has a good screenplay, but it also just kind of felt like the room being like, we don't want to forget Anora,
What won Best Picture? Nickel Boys last year? Did that win?
At NYFCC?
Yeah.
Brutalist won last year.
Okay. Love the Brutalist. Okay, so I was going to start with Universal because it's the reigning Best Picture champ, but you already brought up Sinners.
For sure.
Well, no, I think we should start with Sinners, though, because I do think like you can't have a conversation about the studios and the Oscars this year without starting with Sinners. And you came to me a couple months ago and I wrote about Sinners, I guess when it went on Max, being like, it's the one movie in the first half of the year that has any Oscar consideration at all. I think that's pretty undeniable. And the question is always with these earlier movies, can it hang in there? Can it come back? can it overcome being like a popular movie to become like an awards darling? Can it win over all the different constituencies? And your argument was it is undeniably the front runner, and like maybe even like it would be ridiculous for it not to win. Like, were you that far in on it?
I was basically saying, like, I remember this. I said to you basically, like, I think Sinners is currently the undeniable front runner.
Yeah.
And I am struggling as I sort of sift through the fall and what's coming to identify like a really, really heavy contender.
Yeah.
That's going to mess with it. Now, I'm not trying to be overhypey because like it's a long race and like there's no way Sinners is like a guaranteed favorite here.
Sure.
It was just kind of me looking at things like some of the movies we'll talk about.
Yeah. And
being like, interesting, maybe, but I can see what the holdup would be for Jay Kelly or One Battle After Another, or like movies that I'm very excited for this fall, right?
Yeah, and many movies, I mean, we know some people who've seen some of these. For the most part, these are all unknown quantities. And we don't know how any of them are going to play with audiences, which is still a major player in there.
That I'll look at a Jay Kelly, which looks, like a obvious Oscar contender, and you're like, but it's a Netflix movie, and it's about showbiz, and is everyone a little done with like such an introspective thing on a in a year like this, whatever, you know what I mean? Like you can just kind of see the hang up, and Sinners has its hang ups too. It's a genre movie. It came out in April. Like, is it going to stay relevant? Like, it's so violent. It's whatever. You can you can throw them at me, but it does kind of feel like a movie that broke through culturally in a meaningful way, and that's something that can matter a lot and be hard to dismiss.
And it's a proven quantity. So when something, movies come and go, and you're like, oh, that kind of didn't live up to expectations. Sinners already has lived up to expectations. And I think that matters a lot.
It matters. Beyond that, this is more Oscar nerdy, or this is more industry nerdy, or whatever. But if we're talking about Warner Brothers, the story of Warner Brothers for a few months, as this year kicked off was, oh, those fools, like they brought in DeLuca and Pam Abdi, like they thought they could be an old school tourist studio and like it's going to blow up in their faces. Like Hollywood was writing an obituary for guys who had not even released any of their movies yet.
Yep.
And now Warner Brothers is having an indisputably fantastic year. One of the most incredible years a major studio has had in recent memory. If you're discounting the sort of Disney, like, hey, we made billions of dollars releasing Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and remakes of our cartoons.
But creatively and financially, it's hard to get that combination that Warner Brothers has had.
Warner Brothers, it's like they kick off with Minecraft movie, which obviously...
Have you seen it yet? I feel like you've been avoiding it. Oh, you saw it. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much we want to talk about Minecraft. I defend that in creative ways where I think it is more interesting than it needed to be. That's all.
I don't like the movie. I know what you're saying. And I do think Jared Hess, like, there's stuff in it that I can tell Jared Hess brought to the table versus just like, this is a corporate film.
Like, I feel like Minecraft came out and we were like, oh, it's kind of interesting. And, oh, wow, it's making money. We're so excited. And we're like clinging to these crumbs. And then Sinners comes. We're like, okay, great. Real movie. Moving on.
I would agree with that.
We have something to talk about.
Right. Minecraft movie, basically, everyone takes the win of like, hey, it got a lot of kids to theaters. It made money. Nothing wrong with that. Then Sinners is a sensation.
Yeah.
F1 overperforms everyone's expectations by far. Superman, sort of the same, like, kind of did about the top end of what everyone expected.
And both of them, I think, were better than they needed to be. I think Superman's better than F1, but they're both like, okay, I had a good time. It's not just like an IP thing to make me feel exhausted.
And I have friends who don't see a lot of movies who made an effort to see those movies, right? Who like only get to the theater a few times a year. They made efforts to see F1 or Superman or both. Weapons, coming out this week, has insane buzz. The movie is phenomenal. It looks like it too will over-index and do well and all this stuff.
I'm too afraid to see it, but I'm going to take your word for it.
Oh, no, you got to see it. You're unfortunately going to have to see it, and it's really good. And then, that means that the PTA film will arrive without the expectations of, like, can this save their jobs? And now it's more of a, like, hey, they've had a great year, and here's this huge tourist movie with a major movie star, and why the heck not? Like, let's check it out.
Yeah, I think the One Battle After Another money thing, like, I guess it was expensive, so it'll have some of the same, like, $200 million or whatever it was that Sinners did. But Leo makes money. I think that's, that movie will make its money back at some point along the way.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
The Oscar part of it, I think, is the bigger question of it, right? Like, for a long time, I was kind of on the stance of like, God, PTA is really overdue. He doesn't have an Oscar. That's going to have to change at some point. But as I continue to try to read Vineland, I'm almost done. I'm really going to get there one of these days. And just various buzz that we hear, it seems kind of lighter and maybe more fun than like a serious PTA Oscar play might be. And I want that to be okay too. Like I want it to be received on its own terms, whatever it winds up being.
Well, I certainly right. You get it appears to be quite blockbustery and action packed. Now, so is Sinners.
Sure.
And so, like, and again, it's not like the Oscars are completely allergic to that these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will always have a hard time buying a PTA movie. Paul Thomas Anderson, haven't said his name yet.
PTA to his friends, let's be clear.
PTA
We're on very close terms.
As an Oscar frontrunner, just because he makes very individual movies that tend to be polarizing. Like, he's beloved.
But so did Bong Joon-ho until all of a sudden he was an Oscar frontrunner,
That is true. But I still think PTA is, I mean, the comp to me is the Coens.
Sure.
In terms of like, those were guys who were pretty much always guaranteed Oscar attention because lots of people like their movies.
Yeah.
But often it would be like, oh, well, it's a little too dark or weird to win. And then, of course, they had their breakthrough. And so made PTA. Like, it's
but then also immediately went back to like, that movie's not for us also. Like, you can have your breakthrough and then, make Mickey 17 or whatever and have, be out of the running again.
I mean, the Parasite moment is so interesting in retrospect. I mean, it primarily won because it was such a good movie and anyone who saw it recognized that.
Yeah. It's hard to win on that often,
Right. But you look at the competitors that year, a stacked list, like an incredible year for movies. Irishman, Joker, Marriage Story, 1917, dark, it's like Parasite dark too, but so fun and so crazy and so high energy.
You are describing Sinners right now, also. Dark movie that is fun, high energy, has so much to grab onto.
Obviously, the one in 2019 that I will always scratch my head about is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because I spent a while that year, I remember being like, isn't this it? Like, isn't this the moment for, Tarantino made a movie about movie making and, all kinds of, like he made a movie that feels so arresting to Oscar voters.
Yeah, and it made a bunch of money.
And it was a hit and, but at the end of the day, and this might be the PTA thing too, like it was still a Tarantino movie, and there are some voters who I feel like are probably automatically turned off.
I guess so.
For whatever reason. And maybe that's what happens to Sinners too, where there's some voters who are like, that movie had so much blood sucking in it. Like, I'm not sure I see that as a best picture. I don't know.
And with Sinners, I wonder too, and I don't want to fall into the trap of just like, can movies with black stars play overseas? But it is a very American movie. It's about a lot of like American ideas. And I think that Ryan Coogler is a bigger deal in Hollywood than he is around the world for the, enormous amount of international Oscar voters. Obviously, the Black Panther movies have played everywhere. But I do wonder, especially knowing that Coogler is not necessarily a guy who's eager to get out there and like shake hands and do the circuit, and we don't really know what he's going to do with that. Like, I wonder if there is a way that you have to get the zone of interest voters to consider Sinners as seriously as they ought to. And maybe it's already gotten past that point. It's already big enough to have passed that test, but I am curious if that awaits it.
Yes, but I also do feel like it's like the voters you're talking about matter more in a very split year like last year, where there's just nothing nudging to the front.
Yeah.
This year might be a little different. I don't know. I'm looking, and we can talk about the other studio stuff, anytime, obviously. But Warner Brothers, obviously, I just mentioned a bunch of movies that have done really well. Mm-hmm. The slate you sent, Sinners and One Battle are probably the only things they're going to be bothering to do a sort of top line awards campaign for, right?
Like I assume F1 wins all the sound
F1
awards.
And Superman, those are technical movies. Weapons is probably too weird, but although it's so good that I actually...
That's cool.
Keep an eye on it.
Well, you did this with 28 Days Later or 28 Years Later also, talking about like summer horror movies that are just like so good. And like, I don't know how much you want to talk about that awards wise, but both of them are kind of interesting, like, and Sinners too, like take horror and do something really fascinating with it.
28 Years Later is a movie I loved, but has, the hiccup of being a sequel, has the hiccup of being, even more of a like true genre movie. Weapons is going for kind of like domestic horror epic with big meaty performances and a lot of humor. The whole thing with Weapons is if it becomes sort of like another box office runaway success, that's the kind of thing that's a little harder to ignore. But it's probably too weird for Oscar. I don't know.
All right. Okay, so 28 Years Later, it is a Sony release. I realize I kind of didn't really even get into the Sony lineup in the midst of all of this. I'm not sure we have a lot to. I mean, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, What a Mystery awaits us on that one. Not sure what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think you're going to carry the torch for 28 years later, and I would be interested to see what happens there.
No, I don't think 28 years later is.
Okay. But so Universal being, again, the reigning Best Picture champion among these, having won for Oppenheimer not so long ago, it is just Wicked. They are all in on Wicked for their award season. I mean, with good reason. That is just a gigantic movie. And I do think last year there was that, like, are we going to Lord of the Rings this? Is Wicked Part 1 just going to have to wait until Part 2? And I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it. And I think we don't know how hard Wicked fever is going to sweep the world come November. What do you think?
My fear with Wicked for Good, John M. Chu's Wicked for Good, is the second act of Wicked is tougher sledding.
Yep. You've seen the show. I've not seen the show. I'm aware of what happens.
Certainly. I understand why they broke it up, and I sort of defend it.
Okay.
Because I do think people who are like, oh, but the Broadway show is only this hour. You know, it's like Broadway plotting is so fast, and Broadway, like, storytelling just moves at a completely different pace to movies. Like, they don't translate one-to-one. Musicals,
yeah, you don't,
to be clear.
Pause with a character and sit with something on Broadway because you can't see it.
The camera's not looking at anything because there isn't a camera. And plus, as people may or may not know, and I think some of the casting of The Wicked for Good has, hinted, like, the second act of Wicked plays in parallel to the movie The Wizard of Oz.
Sure.
And cinematically, you cannot brush by that. Like, that's going to have to be a big part of this movie.
Yeah.
Now, the most perfect version of Wicked for Good, that totally works. You've got a movie that's in conversation with a Hollywood classic that offers a satisfying ending that makes one assumes lots of money. So, yeah, that's, I guess, what Universal's hoping for, right? Like, we are the phenomenon of Thanksgiving season, and, we go for it right from there. But Wicked, John Chu didn't even get an Oscar nomination. I just don't see it as, like, a winner. I see it again as a potential, sort of Dune Part 2. Like, yeah, we got some nods.
Sure. I wonder if the actresses are even stronger this time around. Like, I imagine, there is no Defying Gravity in this round, but, like, I think Cynthia Erivo is, like, now she's playing Jesus at the Hollywood Bowl. Like, she only continues to be more ascendant. Like, there is going to be a lot for her to do in that second round. I think Best Actress is kind of odd in the way that it's shaped this year. And I don't know if it's, I was just talking about it in another recording that will air after this, but, you've got, like, a lot of indies, a lot of, like, big transformative performances, but Cynthia Erivo as the standard bearer over, and Ariana Grande too. Like, I'm not trying, and I think they're going to stick with their original categories. It seems, although I don't think any of that's been confirmed yet. But they are the face of that franchise, so I wonder if they're more competitive this time.
I guess you're right about. Well, I think I know who's winning Best Actress.
Who's winning Best Actress?
Jessie Buckley.
Okay, I really want Hamnet to be good. I haven't seen it, so
yeah. But who knows? I don't know. It's only August. But yes, okay. Universal just has Wicked. They will. Yeah, I think
I just run it again, right? Same playbook.
It needs to just creatively deliver. And I would say I'm, like, fairly confident that it will. But
yeah, I think. Yeah. Well, God, like. It just needs to it has such an army of people who, like, had not heard of Wicked as of a year ago. I'm thinking specifically of my 9-year-old niece who, like, wore Wicked pajamas all summer and, like, had no idea what it was. Like, the army behind it keeps growing. So that it will be a success in those terms kind of no matter what. And creatively, I guess we have to see.
Right.
But you did say Deliver, which makes me think of another studio and a movie about a little guy named Bruce Springsteen. So 20th Century has that and Ella McKay and Avatar Fire and Ash. And I put Predator Badlands in there, even though I don't think realistically that's an Oscar movie. That. But, I think Dan Trachtenberg has a ton of fans. Like, he's just going to keep making good movies. I wanted to acknowledge it. But for, so it's owned by Disney. Disney has its own releases. I think Zootopia 2 realistically being the only one that's going to get an awards campaign. But that's a lot on the plate of a studio that, as we were saying before, hasn't seemed all that interested in award stuff in the past. So how are they going to juggle all this?
So was their last big contender West Side Story, or, like, have they had one since?
That was the same year as Avatar, the last Avatar? West Side Story?
Probably.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Like, what we're seeing here is that 20th Century, for the last few years, post-merger, has been in this kind of awkward, okay, like, what are we for zone. And now it's like, yeah, you're Touchstone again. You're Disney's grown-up movie shingle. Plus, you've got Avatar or
all
whatever,
the 90s kids begging
Predator.
for Touchstone to come back. We're finally getting what we wanted.
And that's what the Springsteen movie is. That's what the James L. Brooks movie is. That's great.
Yep.
My read on the Springsteen movie, which I don't know if you know, this is directed by Scott Cooper, who's not in my opinion like even a James Mangold level guy.
Sure.
It just looks like the movie I was afraid A Complete Unknown was going to be.
Although based on the trailers, that was what we thought A Complete Unknown was going to be.
That is true.
Until it turned out to be good.
Yes. So maybe it's good.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. And maybe it's just okay.
It's possible people will know more by the time that they hear this, but Scott Cooper is a big fan of Telluride, so there's been kind of inconsistent speculation that movie might go there, even though it's not on any of the other festival lineups. So I would be so curious to get a look at it. Because, Ella McKay is sitting at festivals, Marty Supreme is kind of out there, but there's not a lot of stuff that's going to be hiding that long, and Springsteen just feels like such a big question mark for us at this point.
It strikes me as a movie that will get attention from awards voters because guys are playing real people and making an effort, and that is very, very good.
You seem tired of this already. You're like ready to...
That trailer really bummed me out.
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to be a jerk because, I'm happy for that movie to deliver. But that trailer just felt like a little, by the numbers in terms of, if Bruce Springsteen doesn't write this record, he's going to,
I'm just think about his whole life before he goes on stage. I've said this to your skepticism, but I do think Stephen Graham being in that movie and about to win some Emmys, just keep an eye out for him. That bump is real. Jeremy Strong enjoyed that bump last year after winning Emmys for Succession and going right on to The Apprentice. So I know Jeremy Strong's in this movie and is all over the trailer, but just keep an eye out for Stephen Graham. That's my hot take.
I just can't agree with you on that. And I think that show he's winning Emmys for is so bad. And he's good. I love Stephen Graham. And I
didn't expect the adolescents' hot takes to be part of this episode.
I'm happy for him to have a moment.
He's having a moment.
He's fine. I mean, he's been working so steadily for so long. And I mean, look, if he crushes it as Bruce's mean dad in flashbacks, I guess. But I just do not buy it. I do buy it with Jeremy Strong because I think Jeremy Strong is entering Philip Seymour Hoffman territory with voters where they're just like, you're in a movie?
Yep.
What is it? Do you have a bunch of stuff? Okay, we're interested, automatically interested.
Yep. Well, he's playing Springsteen's manager.
He's playing John Landau.
Jan Landau, which is the same name as James Cameron's late producing partner, who presumably will have a credit on Avatar, Fire and Ash. It's just very funny that we're going to have two John Landaus in very different realms in this
The musical John Landau is a very, very, very important person.
Yes.
And the production of Nebraska is interesting, and I'm all for this movie being interesting. I really am. The James L. Brooks movie.
Yeah, what's your hope level? Getting our hopes up for James L. Brooks is
the trailer looks kind of good.
I like the trailer. Julie Kavner yelling at Jack Loudon, great.
With Brooks, I am very loath to put any safe money on him because he hasn't made a movie in 15 years.
Yep.
The last two movies he did make were both really messy. Both movies, Spanglish and How Do You Know? Both movies where it's there's stuff to love in them and they're interesting, but they obviously were not Oscar movies.
Not successful really on their own terms in any way. Yeah.
And this has some of the vibes of that of is this interesting mess or is it,
there's the point halfway through
film?
Where you're like, oh, she's a governor. Okay. And then oh, she has a brother and he's dating Io Debris. Oh, that's part of the story too. Okay. I'm not totally sure what this movie is about. And that could work out, but might not.
I think the trailer is hiding a lot of the plot.
Okay, great.
From what I know about the plot. Unless the movie has changed, because I feel like with Brooks, he does, shoot a ton of stuff and then figure it out, right? He's got that kind of, auteur energy.
There's that moment in the trailer where she's on the phone with Jamie Lee Curtis and it's like, and are you thinking about your mom? And they both kind of start to cry where I was like, oh my God, that's the James L. Brooks power. It's coming out of the screen. But is that 30 seconds? And
when
that's
it works, it works. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis
Don't underestimate this woman.
Right, that Oscar voters are suddenly very interested in after years of ignoring her.
Her powers are unrivaled right now. It's hard to know what she can do.
Doing so many performances where she cries and yells on TV and the big screen, and people are very intrigued by that.
She danced in The Last Showgirl. Don't forget about that.
I did.
Did you see Freakier Friday? As we record, it's about to come out. I do want to see it. It looks funny.
Of course. And I assume it'll make some money and, all that's all good.
Yeah. So you're putting a pin in Ella McKay.
I refuse to put any money on it. It just feels very chaotic.
Okay.
It's just kind of like I could see it making an impact. I can also very much see it just being like, what?
Sure.
Vanishing without a trace kind of fast. I don't know.
So
not playing festivals is worrying to me, but I don't know.
That is true. It would be very nice if they had the confidence to play a festival. I mean, of these 20th century movies, I think we can maybe agree Avatar, Fire, and Ash is the only one I would predict for a Best Picture, like confidently predict for a Best Picture nomination at this point.
I think at this point, I'm right. I'm sort of like, I'd lay money on Cameron will nab 4 to 5 nominations, including Best Picture.
Yeah. Maybe not Best Director.
Tech noms for a movie that will make tons of money and be a big Christmas deal.
And everyone will pretend that they don't like 6 months later.
I guess so.
I know you and I are both very much on the Avatar train.
The last Avatar movie, and I'm very excited for this one. There's definitely fatigue could set in at some point, but right? I mean, I feel like it's probably like.
Do you think he's going to make the 4th and 5th one? I feel like he's been like opening the door to maybe not doing it.
Yeah, he's laying the groundwork to not doing it.
Wild. I mean, not
he's
wild.
Old.
Like the man's old and he wants to hang out in his submarine, but like.
Well, but now he's also very fired up about this Ghosts of Hiroshima project in a way that I haven't really felt him being fired up by a project in a long time, right?
That it wasn't a non-Avatar project. Yeah.
Right.
Or non-submarine dive to the depths of the ocean project.
Mm-hmm. Fundamentally with 20th Century, I'm just sort of like, I feel like the Springsteen movies, they're big play.
Yes. I'm sure they feel the same way.
They're sort of like waiting and seeing.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can do Disney and Paramount pretty quickly. I mean, Disney, I don't know how I don't know what kind of obligations they have for an awards campaign for Elio that they, have to do some kind of like notional thing. But
Elio will sneak into animated feature, right?
You think it will? Animated feature is weird this year.
Is it? I was going to say, I'm not.
This is why Netflix is going all in on K-pop Demon Hunters. I feel like they see an opening and they're going to take it.
That's fine. But I'm right. I'm not that plugged into who do we got? There's a new Sylvain Chomet movie. There's a new Mamoru Hosoda movie.
Yeah. Netflix has In Your Dreams coming later this year. And then there's Zootopia 2. That's kind of the big one laying there that Disney's got coming out of Thanksgiving. I mean, have you been in a theater where that trailer played?
No.
People go nuts. It's like...
Yeah. I mean, as someone whose daughter loves that movie, the first Zootopia, and I will never forget how much of a big deal the first Zootopia was.
Good movie.
I'm certainly... Yeah, it's pretty good. I've seen it 400 times.
I didn't realize you were deep in Zootopia. I haven't been there in a while.
My daughter loves Zootopia. Do your kids not like Zootopia?
No, they do. We just haven't we've been on other things.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
Lately. But we listen to that song a lot. Like it comes on and they won't let me skip it. And it's just Shakira belting away. I hope they have another earworm in this one.
I mean, yeah, I guess there's a world where it makes $1.5 billion and it can't be ignored. I mean, Universal doesn't have an animated movie this year. I don't think they came really close with Wild Robot last year, and this year it was all How to Train Your Dragon, which is not eligible. No, nor should it be. No, nor with Lilo and Stitch is the same thing. Like those live action remakes kind of took the place. Oh, I guess Universal has Bad Guys too, right? Isn't that them? Sure, but the voters are always very anti-sequel. Yeah. The animated movie voters. I know. And Zootopia 2 will break through, I assume. If it's reasonably good. Yeah. I don't think Lilo and Stitch, nobody cares. No. Sorry. No. It's also, if it were actually animated, it would be a different thing. But that's just there. I put Tron Ares on this list just to note that it's coming out. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I don't think that'll matter beyond technical awards. Yeah. I love the world of Tron. I'm hopeful that Tron Ares will deliver me some fun. Even with Jared Leto as your main entry point into the world of Tron. No comment. To wrap up with Paramount, which I guess maybe I shouldn't have ended with Paramount, since I don't expect them to be a major Oscar player, but obviously they've just survived this merger from hell and are coming out the other side with the Channing Tatum movie that I think looks fun, even though it's directed by Derek Cianfrance, who has never made a fun movie. And I don't know why now is the time that he started, but I'm intrigued. And not only has he never made a fun movie, but he makes the most serious movies. Yes. Because his 3 films before this were Blue Valentine, which is so depressing. Place Beyond the Pines, which is like a movie where like everyone makes the worst decision every single time, right? Like every character is always
decades of bad decisions.
And then that Lighthouse movie, which is all about like trauma and oh God, there's like a baby that gets abandoned or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he went off and made that twin show with Ruffalo.
Oh, he made that thing. That's right. There's like a COVID Emmy winner.
Yeah.
I know this much is true.
Which I think was also, exactly. No fruit basket.
I think that was one I was like, I'm stuck at home in a pandemic. I'm not watching this. Thank you very much.
Right. But so Roofman, right. Roofman's both a true story. So,
yeah.
There's a little juice there. It's playing festivals.
Mm-hmm. It's opening in like early October, I think. So I kind of thought of it as the dumb money of this year, which played TIFF, and like everyone really liked it. And then it came out in theaters pretty soon after. I think now
it would have made a great comp though, because it came out in theaters and made like $2, right?
I was just gonna say, I think we're in a better place with movie going right now, where there's more hope for Roofman. Roofman also is like, it's like a crime heist movie, not like, don't you understand stocks? So
and look, I defended Dumb Money. I like that movie.
Yeah.
But I also liked it because I thought it was a pretty good portrait of like COVID misery.
Sure.
Which was not a great sell for theater
Yeah, I think
goers.
Roofman's set in the early 2000s, a more innocent time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we should be clear, like, we don't have, like, the highest awards hopes for it, but who knows? Like, Toronto can make things happen.
TBD, I'll wait and see.
Yeah.
I mean, Paramount has been pretty out of this business for a while, right? Like, obviously, they did their due diligence with Top Gun.
Yeah, I mean, they did pretty well with Top Gun, I'd say.
Exactly. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that got
they
really
knew what
far.
they had there. But Paramount is in
in a challenging
transition mode right now.
Sure, yeah. They've been going through it a little bit.
I feel like we will not really, it's sort of like what's happening with 20th Century now, where it's like, it's going to take a couple years to see whatever Paramount is.
Sure. I mean, last year,
much like it's like next year we're going to start to see what Amazon is. Like they started spooling up all this stuff, last year, and it's like next year we'll sort of start to see like what that studio's approach to releasing and awardsing and all that, is. And Paramount probably the same thing. Like, are they going to care at all? Maybe. I don't know.
They last year gave Gladiator 2 and September 5. I think they gave them a good run. Like they had their people out there. They were doing what they could. It didn't get September 5, I guess, did get a screenplay nomination, right?
It did. A really weird one. Did not like that movie.
God bless it.
But some people did.
Yeah. That September 5 was such a strange big Paramount release. I feel like everyone at the time was like, why is this movie being released by this studio? But
because didn't it was...
I think they had it for sale.
There was a whole behind-the-scenes drama about
there
it, right?
was.
Yeah.
So, they did the best with the hand that they had.
Right.
To close out the Paramount list, I put Running Man on here. I saw the trailer for it before I saw Naked Gun, and it just looks really fun, which is not the word that you use when you want to talk about Oscar buzz, so I don't know that that's a realistic conversation, but I want it to be a good time.
I really like Edgar Wright. I'm excited for him making, a straightforward sort of Hollywood blockbuster. I think everyone in Hollywood is rooting for Glenn Powell, or most people are.
All right-thinking people.
Right.
And Coleman Domingo in the Richard Dawson role.
But it would really have to be a sort of, I feel like, a out-of-the-box critical commercial sensation.
Sure.
Versus the on-base double that I'm sort of predicting, right? I'm predicting that movie will be perfectly well-received and will do just fine.
And the thing that we're getting to with all of these movies is we're like, yeah, maybe it'll turn out to be really well, but I don't think we're imagining any of them really achieving what Sinners has. And that's kind of what it comes back to, is that Sinners has already gotten so far as a known quantity.
Sinners is probably that movie this year, right? Like, it's like there's only gonna, these days, be 1 to 2 of those.
Of like a thing that comes into award season as a kind of an established thing.
Yeah, like... Could it happen again? I want it to happen again. Yes, I want as much, grown-up movies breaking out and getting people back into the theater. I want as much of that as possible. But it does feel like we're still in this, like, baby steps sort of moment.
Yeah.
Well,
I think you and I both tend to agree that, like, when big movies can win Best Picture, when it makes sense, when it's not Deadpool versus Wolverine, it is good for everybody when these movies can do it. And, like, not to say that if Smashing Machine turns out to be a masterpiece, that it won't deserve to win Best Picture as well. But, like, if the conditions are right for Sinners to win Best Picture, it is a net gain for absolutely everybody.
Right. It's good that, though, like, okay, maybe we're stretching with some of these.
Okay.
But like, that like there's a fair amount of plausible
Sure.
sort of mid to high tier Oscar contenders from the big movie theater.
Mostly for
movie
Warner
studios.
Brothers, but
Mostly for Warner Brothers. But hey, next year Universal will have the Odyssey and stuff. And
Right.
like, again, I do feel like Amazon MGM will start kicking off.
Maybe they'll have a Bond movie by next. I'm not made, but maybe we'll have a new Bond by next year, like person to play the role, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll know who the Bond will be.
Bold predictions here.
We didn't even. Yeah. Superman's too goofy for Best Picture, right? That's the only one I'm looking at where I'm like
Superman so much, but
yeah.
I just think the superhero bar is so high when it comes to the Oscars,
right.
and like for good. You think it's too high? You think more superhero movie?
No,
too high for this to happen.
Yeah, it's just very high.
Yeah.
It's just very high. It's like Superman's probably close because the combo of generally being so well loved and it is Superman.
Yes.
Like if the Christopher Reeve Superman came out and did how it did back then, today it would be a shoo-in for major Oscar success.
It would have been The Dark Knight, right? Like
yes.
in the world in which that movie could have gotten nominated for Best Picture. But I think Superman's victory is what it has already. And this is always the thing with these big movies is like, do the voters say, well, you have all this money. That's what the money is for. You don't need us to rubber stamp you, which kind of feels like when they kind of put Top Gun Maverick at arm's length, or Elvis even, like that movie, those movies got what they needed and they don't need to give them more than that. That does feel like it still comes up.
Right. But it's a healthier picture than like the last few years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, God, you go back. I was just at the beginning, I was thinking of like years when there was no major studio nominee. And I think 2020 is that year because there were just no movies.
Well,
so seeing where we've come from and where we are now, where we don't just need Top Gun Maverick to save theaters, that we've got a weapons and Minecraft movie, I'll take it. I feel like if the studios can be players this time around, we'll all be better for it.
Well, have me back on before the end of the year so I can totally be wrong about...
Well, we got to talk Avatar at the very least. I feel like there's no one else I want to return to Pandora with. So thanks for doing this with me. We'll let's go see some movies.
Okay, I'll see you soon, Katey.
This episode is brought to you by Lucasfilm, presenting Andor Season 2. Andor has earned 14 Emmy nominations, including Writing, Directing, and Outstanding Drama Series. Vanity Fair raves that Andor is profoundly resonant. It's the best television of the year. All episodes of Andor are now streaming on Disney+. So now you're going to hear a conversation with who I could really unreservedly say is my favorite living actress. Michelle Williams is a 5-time Oscar nominee, and she's the star of some of the best movies of this century, including Brokeback Mountain, Certain Women, The Fabelmans. But she's also done some unbelievable work on television lately. She won an Emmy for her role on Fosse Verdon a few years ago, and she's nominated this year for Dying for Sex. You have probably already heard me talk about this show because I love it so much, and Michelle is phenomenal on it. She plays a woman named Molly who responds to a terminal cancer diagnosis by trying to find fulfillment in sex for the first time in her life. The show is one of the first things Michelle has worked on as an executive producer as well as an actress, and I wanted to know from her what it's like to have that kind of control over your work after so many decades of being in the industry. She started as a kid, and how she's shaping her own film sets and how she learned what she wants them to be like. We talked about working with intimacy coordinators, the things that genuinely surprised her about Molly's sexual journey on this show, and how motherhood has changed her approach to her work, and also why she feels like it's important to talk about that, which not all working moms do. It was a really great conversation. I'm really excited for you to hear all of it. Here now from the star of Dying for Sex, Michelle Williams. Michelle, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. I loved this show so much, and I don't want to excessively praise people at the very start, but I just genuinely loved it so much. So thank you for making it. And I talked to Jenny Slate a little while ago for this show as well, and I talked to her about her chemistry read she did with you to kind of finalize getting this part. But I haven't heard the story from your side of it, and I'm curious about what it's like to work on helping cast somebody to play your best friend. That seems very unusual, and I wonder what that was like.
Yeah, it's so strange for me to be on like the other end of the table, so to speak. Like I don't have experience having people audition. I have experience auditioning, but
Sure.
it was very unusual for me to be in that position because I'm used to sitting in Jenny's chair. Like I know what that feels like. It was me, it was Liz, it was Kim. It's a warm room. It's a room. It's a warm room. It's a loving room, and we, you only ever want. You're like beaming desire for for the person to do and feel their best and to be the most relaxed. So
Hmm.
it was actually, in some ways it can be so healing when you get to have like the opposite experience of what you're used to. Like, oh, okay, so if I'm now in this chair, how can I build a better room? How can I build a room that I would like to have walked into when I was the one auditioning? Um, so that was like the vibe, that was the mood. And then we showed up wearing the exact same thing. We looked like we're like a rock band duo cover. I was like, oh,
Perfect.
we should like we like like when you're like your best friend in grade school and you're like you call and you
Yeah,
decide that
like you
you're going to
coordinate your
match
outfits ahead of
clothes for
time.
like
Yeah.
half a day or like whatever. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we already had that vibing for us. And it was just so clear that her connection to the material was a heartbeat. She was just
Hmm.
really attracted to the same thing that we all were, which at the time felt very niche. um, and it felt like this kind of weird thing that we might be like the only four people
Mm.
that were drawn to it because its tone was so unusual. But Jenny's connection to it was what all of ours were, and that was really palpable and really present, and we all just kind of fell in love.
Yeah. I mean, you were a producer on this series. You were an executive producer on Fosse Verdon. And sometimes there's a difference in those titles, sometimes there's not. But I'm curious about if this was taking the reins more in terms of, auditioning, like you're saying, and, what it took to take that step for you and why now is the time to go behind the scenes in that way.
It's funny because it's not something that I've necessarily had like an interest in. Playing that role or
Mm.
being in charge or producing. I'm still like very much trying to figure out the acting side of things and trying to make progress and work through obstacles. And so my focus still really is that. But then also this kind of like creeping desire to have a little bit more say, a little bit more ability to affect change.
Mm. Not control. I thought you were going to say control, but it sounds like it's different from that.
I think ability to affect change is like the best way that I could say it. Like I
Yeah.
really want to build a more equitable work environment.
Mm-hmm.
I care deeply about how people feel when they show up to their job. What I can't control is I can't control if people are going to like what we do or not like what we do. Like we
Mm-hmm.
can all try our best and then we have to like let it go into the world and then the world will say here's how we feel about it. But what I can be a part of, what I really can affect is how people feel when they show up to a set that I work on.
Mm-hmm.
And if something is going awry, then I want to have my hands in the fix of it.
Yeah.
Because that's really like that is the thing that you can, I mean, to use this word, that is the thing you can control. You can
Sure.
control how people feel when they show up to work and if they feel like their work environment is safe and allows them to bring and be there and do their best.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously so much about Dying for Sex that's delicate and requires everyone to be on the same page. Was there anything that you were able to pull off on this that you maybe hadn't been able to or wish you had been before or feel especially proud of making sure was all in the right place on this show?
I think, because the subject matter was so delicate, the feeling in the room needs to be where, like we had an intimacy coordinator and I'd never worked with
Mm-hmm.
an intimacy coordinator before, but to feel like safety is really paramount, emotional safety. Physical safety, yes, but emotional safety, because you're also, you're working through when you're talking about sex, death, illness, like you're working through, people have trauma spots with those, like all, everybody who's in that room, be it an actor or a camera person, everybody's bringing their life experience to these very delicate subject matters. And that can be really provocative for people. So I thought that because in our cast was so large too, this wasn't, this wasn't a love story between two people where they have like a tacit agreement about what they're comfortable with and not comfortable with. You've got day players, you've got sex parties, you've got people coming in and out in all number of costumes and positions. And so to have like an umbrella, like a framework for all of that it sits under, I thought was so important. So that person, so you have somebody who's acting as a go-between between all these different departments, between people who are on set, people who are off set, and making sure that everyone is comfortable with what they're being asked to do, and that there's privacy. So it gives you autonomy. So like that person has the ability to say to the intimacy coordinator, hey, between you and me, like, I don't like this. And that intimacy coordinator acts as a buffer. And so then that person also, it protects their job, it protects their livelihood. Like, I just thought this is, there have been circumstances in my life where I wish I had had that person. Other circumstances in my working life when I was involved in intimate situations where I was like, we got this, we're totally fine. But other situations where I can imagine how beneficial that would have been.
Yeah. I'm just imagining sets as this gossipy place where if you like confide in somebody about what you don't want to do, like by lunch, everyone knows about it because everyone's standing around and gossiping about each other. It seems like it'd be like any other place in that way.
Yeah, it's like having like a really safe space, this like one person that you can really trust. It's like having like a set therapist.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the show with a bunch of friends who are therapists and, have so many questions about the very emotional logistics of it. But one of them asked me something that I wasn't really expecting about, there's so many things, like we said, are delicate or different and so many brave things that have to happen. But when taking this on, if there was anything that kind of like surprised you as something that Molly would do or something that you would have to do. And my friend brought up bringing the puppy into the hospital out of spite, like not the sex part of it, but the spitefulness of it. And I don't know if it was that scene or anything else that you were just like, oh, wow, she's really going for it. Or I really have to go for it here.
Right. Well, it all, yes, texting the puppy. I mean, I was really surprised when the puppy showed up as a Vizsla. I was like, wow, oh my God, that's such a specific choice of a dog. Like, I was expecting something like furrier, and it's like a sleek Vizsla.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, honestly, there were so many things because these scripts kept rolling in. Like when we started shooting, I think we had, 2 scripts, 3 scripts, something, and they were still in formation. So you were rolling with it, you were engaged in making something, and then you were rolling with the road that was kind of unraveling in front of you. So you had this experience of both concentrating on the work at hand and then also seeing it kind of expand, and without knowing how it was going to end. I mean, we knew how it was going to end, but like not knowing exactly how the trajectory of the path to land the plane. So it was kind of a constant state of,
There's flying penises in this episode. Who would have thought?
Flying penises in this episode. But I have to say, like every time, and Liz and I worked so closely on this, and we'd spent so much time talking in advance and during, and felt like incredible alignment with Liz and Kim and why we were all kind of here. So when these scripts came in, I'm telling you, they were just, no matter like what the sex party and all these things that were kind of surprises to us, the feeling always between myself and the other actors was, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, can you believe it? Can you believe what they just like cooked up for us? Like, now let's go eat it.
Well, I'm always interested in how people start working relationships like this. And I know you and Liz had talked about this show forever. And obviously you knew her work. She was, established. But when you sign on to do something like this and saying, like, I'm trusting you to come up with 6 more scripts that are worth it and that are in line with this, like, how big of a leap does that feel like? And you have to do it over and over again, starting new shows. Like with Liz specifically, how did you realize it was time to take that leap with her?
It does feel exactly like that. It feels like, okay, but I can't predict the outcome and I can't see into like the future of Liz's brain, but I love this woman and I want to be around her. And I'm always interested in what she has to say and how she says it and that like unstoppable humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's who I'm there for, is this person who I just want to be around.
Yeah.
And I've been, for some reason, I've been thinking about, the actor Rene Auberjonois. I worked with him on, I would say, maybe because James LeGros and I were texting, but I worked with this actor Rene Auberjonois, who we worked together on Certain Women, and he and I and James LeGros became very close. And Rene passed maybe a couple years ago, and I've just been thinking about him recently, and I think about something that he said before he passed, and he said, he was speaking about his own death, and he said, leap empty-handed into the void. And for some reason, I take that on and take that in, and I kind of feel like making anything is exactly that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been on my mind so much recently. Maybe it's just thinking about people passing or, human bravery, his attitude about his own, watching his own demise. So I don't know. I think it's kind of that. It's like it's just a big jump, but I love the jump.
That's such a lovely phrase. I've never heard that before, but what a great way to talk about it. I mean, I was thinking about Molly and Mitzi Fableman and Gwen Verdon. Kind of, there feels like there's a through line there of like women kind of like seizing things and, shaking off expectations in some way. But on this show, the way, like what Molly gets to do, knowing that there's not something coming after this, and specifically thinking about her relationship with her mom and someone who like you might not be able to forgive if you knew that the time wasn't running out. And there's such like it felt like an extra freedom in a character, like a character who could do things, not just the sex stuff, but the emotional stuff that people who know they have a couple more decades ahead of them wouldn't be able to do. And I wonder if that freedom struck you, if there, there was something you were able to shake off in being Molly specifically doing this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the freedom, ideally we should all live life with a death mentality.
Sure,
we should all,
sure.
like, okay, any minute now. So what would you want to do differently? And how would you want to make your life more authentically your own? But also, I can also imagine going kicking and screaming to my own death. Like it might liberate some, but it might like paralyze others. And so I do continuously return to like her human bravery. And I think I get so affected by playing real people who really were, and these were their real decisions and their real actions and their real attitudes about life and the ways that they touched people and what they managed to leave behind, that is somehow so palpable and vibrant that it needs to live on and become a piece of art, And so that's Mitzi and that's Molly and these spirits that were just so extra that they need to be imprinted and recorded. And so I find that very moving to like join my life with theirs and to let their spirit make an imprint on me and make me a better person, make me live more fully.
Is that how playing a real person always feels? Like you're joining yourself with them in some way? I guess that sounds kind of woo-woo, but like it's real, right?
It's
that there is
there's
a joining that happens there when you channel a real person.
It's a little woo-woo, but it's I think it also is.
Yeah. You brought up James LeGros and Certain Women earlier, and I wanted to ask about your work done with Kelly Reichardt over the years, which she's just one of my favorite filmmakers, period. And the length of the working relationship that you have there, and maybe it goes back to what I was asking you about Liz. Like, how does that relationship serve as like a touchstone for you. Like you come back and work with the same person and you change, and you go from like a huge set like this one to being in showing up and it's 4 people or something like that. Like what does that give you, being able to return to that over and over again?
Well, one, it makes my life feel long, and to feel like this continuity with Kelly. I mean, I hope that there's something still in store for us.
Me too.
Thanks. I may from your mouth to her ears. Look, each time it just comes. It's like been a total miracle unfolding in my life, that this chance that we took with each other, this Wendy and Lucy, this teeny tiny project that had no expectations or eyes on it or anything.
You and a dog. That's all you needed.
And her dog. Like that's her Lucy. People understood who she was, who Kelly is as a filmmaker when they saw that movie, and it began this collaboration. But it was just, two people seeking each other out in the, smallest, most genuine way to, that small things can be important.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was very meaningful to me then. It continues to be very meaningful to me now. And even though the movies that we've made together now have gotten a little bit bigger. Wendy and Lucy was a crew of 6 or 7 people, and we wore multiple hats. And but then I was reminiscing with a friend about Meek's Cutoff, and we were looking at what the base camp looked like for Meek's Cutoff, and there was one Winnebago, and that was hair and makeup and the bathroom for 9 actors.
You're out in the middle of nowhere. Like there's nowhere to go.
We're out in the middle of the desert. Hair, makeup, wardrobe, and the bathroom for 9 actors. Yeah. 1 Winnebago. And you know what? We look back on it as the most charmed time of our life. You don't have to have all the accoutrements to have an incredible creative experience.
Yeah. I love what you said about looking back and making you feel like your life has been long, because I feel like sometimes we get into our 40s and we're like, no, I'm young. These kids are all the same age as me. But there's also a niceness to that of being able to look back on it. Is that always how you think about it? Being like, yeah, I can't appreciate that it's been a long journey to get here. I don't need to, wish I was 22 right now.
Correct. Correct.
But it's been that way always. This isn't a recent thing.
I think so. Now I I can see a path in the distance. I didn't know what path I was on. I didn't know where I was going or what I was forging. It was just sort of instinct after instinct. And now when I look back, which I don't do very often, I'm not in a state of reflection about my.
It's people like me making you do it. Sorry.
Yeah. But now when I look back on it, I think it's interesting to be to rear view it. And maybe something I could say is that I trust myself. I've made some mistakes and some things that I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Oh, I know I did that. I shouldn't have done that. But for the most part, it's it's a path to somebody who trusts themselves.
Yeah. That's a nice way to think of it. As we get closer to wrapping up, I've been listening to some of the interviews you've been doing around Dying for Sex, and you've done this always, talking about your career choices a lot of times in terms of being a mom. You do this job because it's where your kids in school, or you can stay in one place. And I think it's harder for women than men for all the various reasons. A lot of times people don't want to talk about it that way. You want to be considered for your career. It doesn't have to be about you being a mom. And I wonder if ever was a moment for you being like, no, I want to be open about this. I want to be part of it. Because I think for parents who aren't giving interviews about themselves, it feels very obvious that we make choices about what our kids need in our work, but it's not talked about to that way. So I wonder if that was a conscious choice to be frank about that part of it, and if that felt important to you.
It does for me, and I totally respect that it doesn't for other people.
Sure.
And I get those reasons because of gender politics and how stacked the deck is, and you don't really want to open up that side of the conversation and then but for me, because working in parenting I've really benefited from hearing about how other parents manage both
Everything.
things at once. Yeah. So if there's something that I've learned, because now I'm 20 years into parenting, if there's something that I've learned, then I hope it could be of service to somebody else who's like similarly struggling with the muchness of it all.
I just always feel so grateful when it's like, I can't say, no, I can't do it at that time because I have to pick up kids from camp. And like, if you know that the other person knows what they're talking about, like, it's like you're not having to hide half of your life in the workplace in some way. But it also, it has to be the right workplace, like the kind that you're talking about at the very beginning. Like, you have to make it an environment where that's okay.
Yes. And then you have to know when you need to keep those things to yourself about when you know that you're not in a safe environment, you can't say something about that's like really going on in your family that's servicing or understanding. You know, instinctively, they're going to think that I'm weak and that I'm unable to perform the task at hand. And so I'm going to have to put this undercover. But when you're in a work environment, you can say, here's what it is and here's why it is. And that will be met with compassion and understanding. And that there's always a solve. Like we can always figure something out. So yes, similarly, I appreciate the ability to say, and that it's not, that it's just, it's a component of life, and it's not an excuse or a sign of not having your shit together. That you know,
even if we don't have our shit together, it doesn't necessarily because their kids around us. That's how I feel about it. That does it for today's episode. This podcast is edited by Brett Fuchs and produced by Brett Fuchs and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. Thanks again to my guest co-host today, David Sims. Subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theankler.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And go to prestigejunkie.afterparty.substack.com to join our bonus paid tier with lots of extra bonus stuff, including, again, a video version of today's episode. We'll be back on Saturday with another special bonus interview episode. We'll see you then.